You do fight Belial and Asmodean in this game.
Okay.
Wow, all right. Another good question that comes up. This is interesting from a story perspective. This is from at Private Bundy. It says, can we expect moral decisions in Diablo 3 like we see in Mass Effect, or is it a more linear story? Are we going to have any choice in this story?
No, actually, that's a very interesting question because early on we had toyed with the idea of adding player choice, but it really didn't fit with the style of gameplay. It really kind of ground things to a halt when you had to make these choices, and it just didn't really work with the fast-paced Diablo style of gameplay. So we moved away from that. But I mean, it does really lend itself to thinking that, which is why we came up with that idea and why they're probably thinking the same things, because it is all about corruption. It is all about these moral choices that people make.
All right, not happening.
That does bring up a good point. I mean, Joe Wilson and you have both talked about the fact that one of the big differences that you wanted to make between 2 and 3 was to have more memorable characters, to have more named characters that you were grasp onto and understand their story. What are some of the highlights for you in terms of the story that you've been able to bring into this game?
I'd say just overall, I mean, the introduction of Leah, she has a very interesting backstory. Her relationship with Deckard Cain, as she grew up, he took her around, like he's been searching for the answers to how are they going to defeat the demons when they come back. So she's had a very interesting upbringing, scouring the world for these clues and these artifacts. And just in general, we really wanted to hit on the emotional aspect of the backstory of these people, like why they're doing what they're doing and what brought them to this place. So just kind of have that emotional resonance for the players.
Wow.
I have a question here from here's Mr. FJ. He said, I'm really hoping that you'll ask this, so here you go. What happened to the Herodric Cube from Diablo 2?
That's a good question. We haven't said what happened to the Herodric Cube.
This is a good time.
Break it for us here. Come on, Leonard.
There's something called the Nephilim Cube in our game.
Interesting.
Not related?
Unrelated.
Unrelated cube. Okay.
All right. This is an interesting question from Nicholas at P. Low Lock. Says, Leonard, will you visit High Heaven in Diablo 3? You've been in Hell. Will you see Heaven? Or will Imperius be pissed?
Sorry,
any chance we're going to head to Heaven?
Oh, we're not talking about that. That'd be awesome, though, wouldn't it?
It would be awesome. That's what they're asking. I don't know. All right.
We did see 3. You did show 3 zones, actually in-game footage in the lore panel. Do you want to take us through briefly what those 3 zones were?
Yeah, Kevin was showing off the various parts of one of our acts. He showed Chaldeum, which is this big city. It's like one of the biggest cities in the world. It's the main trade city in the world. And it's fallen under the sway of Belial. We don't really know how he's controlling it or how he gained control. So that was like one of the places he showed. And the other place was the Dalgur Oasis, which is where they get all their water from. And it's another place that he has all his minions out corrupting people and basically creating havoc.
I love the concept in Chaldeum of how the wealthy people lived very high up and it was very regal and beautiful, and then definitely the difference between the character design of the plebes on the ground and how they lived and made the city work.
Yeah, so we just thought that was a very interesting way to show the stratification of society in that place.
It's very Doom-like to me. I have a question here from Chaos Smurf. I had to go to TweetDeck to finish it out, but Leonard, have there been times that you wanted to put something into a game, D3 or otherwise, but pulled back because it was too similar to the plot line of other titles?
No, I mean, and one of the great things about Diablo was that it had this rich backstory that just really had a lot of untapped lore. Like they had raised a lot of questions that really hadn't been answered, and even some things that really hadn't been brought up. They've touched on things in Diablo 1 that they didn't even touch on in Diablo 2. So we really had this great rich lore to draw from. And I don't think there was never any point where we said, we're getting too close to other stuff. It kind of had its own life, and it was very just fun to work with these ideas.
What is it like with your writing team if you obviously come across questions at a point in time that haven't been answered? What happens at that point? You sit down and hash out like possible creative solutions. What is your process?
Exactly. And it's funny. It goes on constantly. Mm-hmm. You'll work your way through quests, and you'll get a certain portion of the way done with an area, and then someone will realize that, oh, wait, what about this? And then you're like, oh, back to the drawing board. Because there is, you really want to keep all this stuff in context, and you want to answer questions, and you don't want to have big logic gaps.
Is that difficult to do with an IP, especially when you're trying to introduce it to arguably a very new audience 10 years after Diablo 2?
Well, what our goal was with this game was that we wanted to have enough background and enough history for hardcore Diablo fans to really sink their teeth into it. But you should be able to play this game without ever knowing anything about the Diablo universe. There's different layers of storytelling. The main story arc and the main story or the main level of storytelling is something that you can just jump into and gain a great appreciation from just from what's in the game. And then there's other levels where you pick up lore and you really talk to everybody and get all the side conversations that you don't have to have, but it's just digging deeper into it. And that's where we start to really touch on the Diablo and the Diablo 1 and the Diablo 2 lore and the deeper story stuff.
Very cool stuff. All right, we got one more question for you on Twitter. This one is Private Bundy again. Asks, can we expect exclusive bosses or places that only some classes will be able to play based on their story?
I'm sorry, I'm having a real hard time.
Sorry, the question is, can we expect exclusive bosses or places to play that'll be only for certain classes?
No, and one of the reasons for that is because we're so much based around multiplayer, and we're in a really drop-in and drop-out system. So if we were to, and we're randomly rolled worlds, so let's say we were going to do something that could only be played by the Barbarian. I'm jumping into a game with a Barbarian, so it's oh, well, we've got Barbarian content. Well, then that guy drops out of the game, and we've rolled a world that has all this Barbarian content for you, and now we have no Barbarians to play it. So we did talk about that early on, because that seems like a logical thing to do.
Could you maybe have content if someone from your party is sort of, in that class, then they get access to that content and everyone together gets it? So you have to unlock it as a team?
Well, we don't want to keep people from dropping in and out. We want to make the multiplayer experience really easy to get into and get out of.
That's true.
And not really lock people in or make it so that oh, well, you have to re-roll your game because the Barbarian dropped out of your game.
Drop in, drop out is an important part.
What has the feedback been from the beta so far on the story?
We've gotten really good feedback on the story. One of the things that really helped us was before we did the public beta, we had an internal alpha and an internal beta, and we got a lot of really great feedback from the other developers inside Blizzard that really helped us even refine the story another degree. We thought we had kind of refined it within an inch of its life, but no, when we got, the other developers were hey, why don't you guys do this? Why don't you present it this way as opposed to that way? That really helped us just bring it to that next level.
Perfect. Every voice matters, right?
Exactly.
Absolutely. Well, speaking of Diablo 3, we got a lot of good information out of you. Thank you, Leonard. And now we're going to head on over to the Diablo 3 open Q&A session where fans get to ask the team some tough questions.
Can't wait.
And see what they have to say. So that's going to be Jay Wilson and the team. We're going to head on over there now for that live panel, which will last an hour. And we'll be back here live on the stage with more special guests. Enjoy it live here on DirecTV.
Welcome to the Diablo 3 Open Q&A panel. Here to answer your questions are Jay Wilson, Kevin Martins, Christian Leitner, Jason Regier, and Robert Breidenbecker.
Hello, everyone. How's Blizzcon going? Awesome. All right, so this is just an hour of asking us any questions that you want to. My name's Jay, and I work on Diablo. This is Kevin Martins. He's our lead content designer and more the lore and story guy, so I don't have to answer those. Jason Regier is our lead programmer. Robert Breidenbecker. Rob, what's your title? He's the VP of Online Tech. And Christian Leitner, who's our art director. So I think we can cover almost anything. So whenever you guys are ready.
All right, you guys are ready?
We're ready, Chad.
Let's do it. Good to
Chad,
see you guys.
One request, Chad. We've been doing a lot of press. No more of the why are you guys so sexy questions. We're tired of answering them.
I'll try to hold off for now.
Okay, thanks, Chad.
Maybe later, though. All right, come on up.
So yesterday during the panel, you guys were talking about difficulty level, how a normal mode is going to be really, really easy. But what about veteran players? Are we really going to have to beat the game once before we get any kind of challenge? Are you guys going to add a way to make the game harder before progressing?
No, we're not planning on any kind of shortcut through normal difficulty. Just like Diablo 2, Normal difficulty will be fairly quick path. We're not too worried about people getting bored. It does get more challenging kind of later in even the first act and progressively throughout. So I wouldn't say that the entire of normal difficulty is not nearly as easy as the first hour or so. The first hour is really a tutorial. So what we really feel internally, what we've noticed with a lot of people playing, especially more serious players, is once they get through that first part really quick, and then they get into the rest of the normal difficulty, and they don't have any problems with getting bored or things like that, because it is challenging enough.
I should also say that, the normal difficulty level, if you're a veteran, awesome Diablo player, this is your chance to enjoy the story, get familiar with the skills, so that you can really kick ass with them in the next difficulty level. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on up.
How you doing? To me, there's three type of players in Blizzard games. There's hardcore, and then there's casual gamers, and then there's farmers. And with farmer being such a big industry, thanks to WoW, how do you guys plan on combating this? Because I know the farming industry is already looking at Diablo and going, how can we make some more money?
Well, we don't really see that it's as big an issue for Diablo as it is for WoW. The most important thing to remember about Diablo is it's not a persistent world. So the reason that farming feels so bad in World of Warcraft is because the farmers are in your world, they're taking your quest mobs, they're taking your drops, they're interfering with your experience. But in Diablo, they can go off into their own server, into their own world, in their own instance, and farm to their heart's content, and it doesn't affect you at all. So that's really the big issue in terms of, the downside of farmers is really their impact on the world more than anything else. So we don't feel it's going to be a big problem in Diablo.
Thank you. Come on up.
With the release of Diablo 3, I was wondering what the chat gem's going to do.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that, please?
What's the chat gem do?
What is the chat? Kevin, you want to take that?
I still didn't understand the question. What
What's the chat gem do?
It fulfills all your dreams. It fulfills all your dreams. That's what.
Oh, that's, yeah. All right.
Thank you. All right.
All right. You guys made the followers more viable for endgame content, because the feedback wanted it. Is there any benefit, or is it even possible to get to the end of the game in Inferno without a follower?
Yeah, it should be totally possible to... the way we're trying to tune them is to make them viable, not required. So they do give some nice bonuses that if you're super min-maxer, you're really going to want them there. But if you just care about, if you really don't like followers, and there are definitely people out there, is one of the reasons we originally considered not making them viable, then you should be able to play without them. Also, this won't be for ship, but we still kind of want to figure out a way that you can get a benefit of a follower without having a follower, but we're not sure we never figured out exactly how we want to do that. But that's something we're going to explore in the future.
Thank you.
All right. Straight up question: is Diablo a girl?
The question is, Diablo a girl? Diablo's not constrained by our human gender stereotypes.
She's a demon.
So no, the fact is, Diablo can take multiple forms, and we have never seen the true form of Diablo yet. So Diablo has many surprises in store for us.
That was good. All right.
That was kind of a shifty answer. Just answer the dude's question, Kevin.
All my answers are shifty.
Oh, okay. Fair enough.
Hey guys, I was hoping you could elaborate on hardcore mode. For example, when it's unlocked, are there going to be real money transactions, and are there any differences between Diablo 2 hardcore mode and Diablo 3? Anything we should expect?
Yeah, so hardcore mode, where to start? So for those of you who don't know, once if you make a hardcore character and that character ever dies, the character's gone forever. So the big things about hardcore is completely separated from the regular games, so they do have their own auction house, but it's a gold-only auction house. They don't have a real money auction house, and they can't trade in any way with regular characters. So they're isolated within, they can trade with other hardcore characters, but not with normal characters. They also can't trade items